Season 8 of Rick and Morty is here. I've watched it a week later than all of you. I don't know why they do it to us. Why do they give the Europeans the good stuff a week later than all the Americans? I don't know why, but I've seen it. Summer of all fears. And in this video, I'm going to go through the episode, break it down for you and how I interpreted it and what I think of it, and give it a score out of 10 at the end. Make sure you stay around, drop a sub if you want to see more Rick and Morty reviews and other things as well. I've been doing loads of Black Mirror and loads of other stuff, so do check out the channel. I'd really appreciate it. But let's get into it. Starting off with the story of Summer of All Fears, the first episode of season 8. It's an interesting choice, I think, doing this one off the bat. But the story, we see Summer and Morty in this futuristic world. They've been through the ringer. You know, Summer is the head of this tech organization. She's got loads of things on the wall, but there's loads of charger references. It's very confusing in that sense in the beginning. We see Morty. He's living in the outskirts of the world with dogs and eating chili and in a moldy bowl. You know, like, what's going on here? Then out of nowhere, we see that Summer's creation, her tech creation, has worked, and chargers are now obsolete and phones are charged from the universe. And then all of a sudden she says the Matrix is obsolete, and they break it down, and we find out where they've been this whole time, which is in the machine, the Matrix machine that Rick made for them to teach them a lesson to stop stealing his phone chargers. And now when you think of Rick and Morty, it doesn't get more Rick and Morty than that. Rick creating an invention that's well over the top for such a minute, small lesson that he wants to give to you. It reminds me of the episode where Rick gave Morty the save and reset game machine just to teach him a lesson to not call out the vat of acid that he made. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's what Rick does. He's a menace, he's horrible, he's disgusting, and he fell asleep. How blasé is that? How nonchalantly he's put them in through this mad thing where they've got to live a world, a lifetime in this machine, and he just fell asleep. He just doesn't care, does he? And what we see from this is these characters, this new Morty, this new Summer, still live on through the younger versions of themselves that we see return from the Matrix. You know, they don't use the Morty's mind blowers machine, which I love that they keep referencing and bringing that back. But yeah, they decided to not use it and allow them to have the choice to be who they became. And we see Summer being a very mature woman in the 17-year-old's body, going to school and trying to be the bigger person. You know, I found that very cool just to see the comparison of what we're like at school, and, you know, the teenage sort of fears and anxieties come out. But she's older, so she's learned that those things don't matter. As you do get older, you look back on yourself as a kid and you think those things didn't matter. And she's now actually like teaching Beth how to be a better person, or trying to. And then Beth obviously over time gets a little bit irate about it, because at the end of the day it is her daughter and she's coming out with some crazy stuff. And then Morty, who's probably on the badder end of it, is struggling to exist. Do you know what I mean? He's having PTSD because he was in the charger wars within this Matrix world. It was crazy how all of that played out. Obviously, he knew that he was in the Matrix at the beginning, stole something, got arrested. He went down this crazy path, and then he ended up working in the military in this war, realizing that he couldn't die, so he was going through extreme scenarios consistently over and over again to complete the mission of unaliving Osama bin Laden. And I thought that was a hilarious line. I'm not gonna lie, I cackled at that bit. There was a lot of funny charger related puns in this episode, and I thought they really landed 9 times out of 10. And what we see is this older young Morty, you know, in the real world. He's building this van, and he actually tricks Rick. Obviously trusts him a little bit more and like gets along with him in this new Morty, but he puts him in the machine, he puts him in the Matrix. And this Matrix was created to teach people not to put people into the Matrix. It's like a very meta version of what they were in before, and they're telling him like, you shouldn't put people in the Matrix. So Rick works out straight away. And what is really interesting here is we see that Rick, similar to how Summer made the Matrix obsolete that she was in by creating a world where chargers weren't needed, he creates an obsolete version of this Matrix by putting everyone in that world into a Matrix. So it's a Matrix within a Matrix within a Matrix. It's very like, he found his way out, different to how Summer did, but they both managed to do it. Morty then takes the van and he's on a rampage. He wants to destroy the power plant that would make the whole of North America shut down, basically. It would be very drastic. And of course he's doing this for his brother in arms, CJ, who passed away in the charger wars. Again, still hilarious, but he's obviously struggling with it. And I think this is what I love about Rick and Morty, is like something so humorous, something so silly can actually have a deeper underlying message. Like, he is a war veteran with PTSD that we're seeing play out here, and it's obviously in a humorous way because of the war that he was within was very silly and very charger related. And then obviously Morty destroys the plant, almost getting to the radiation in the middle. It's down to Summer to stop him in this moment. Summer goes all the way there. Obviously she's had a little side thing with Beth, where she's gone to this pottery retreat. And I really enjoyed this conversation between Beth and Summer here. It was just a very decent conversation about, you know, being the feeling of being a middle-aged woman. You shouldn't be feeling these emotions when you're a 17-year-old girl. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it was very interesting to have that conversation. And I think someone watching that is, you know, maybe a middle-aged woman watching that, or a younger woman watching that, they would have a message to be taken from that. When Summer stops Morty from destroying the power plant, that she actually was the person who created all of the war. So she actually has this darker side to her. She created the Charger War to be able to create this venture for more lithium, to create the machine to break out of the Matrix, which was really interesting. She apologizes to Morty that she betrayed him. She left him in this world, even though she knew he was the only other real person within it. And she regretted that, and she felt bad for that. And it was when the scientist says you shouldn't mess around with your grandfather's creations or something like that. And then they think they're still in the Matrix because two of them say it, and then they beat him up. And then obviously Rick appears and saves the day. But it was very funny how that bit played out as well. Obviously, that is the story of this episode. They end up using the Morty's mind blowers thing to wipe their minds, and then it's the end of the episode. Very quickly, the concept is incredible. It's the first ever episode of season 8, and they've gone in with something so strong. I think it was a bit odd at the beginning, like what's going on here, but then when you realize what's happened, that they've been put into a matrix within a matrix, you know, all this sort of stuff, you know, they tick off that sort of pop culture reference of the Matrix, the film, and they do it in such a fun way, especially with the, you know, the war breaking out. It's like Saving Private Ryan vibes, where they're all pushing this area, this top of the hill. You know, he's dying over and over again, but because he's not supposed to die in this world, he comes back, and they use that to his benefit, and then he takes them down, you know, and Summer uses him, Morty, as that tool to be able to create this world for the lithium, for her to break out. The concept is incredible. I really enjoyed it, and I like the contrast and comparison of when Rick was in it, how he went about it, and how Summer went about it. This moves us perfectly over to the characters in this episode, and I want to specifically mention Summer. She's obviously the main character in this episode, and that's something that has been done a lot throughout the previous seasons of Rick and Morty. There'll be 1 or 2 episodes where Summer is a very dominant figure within it, and in this episode, it wasn't just her being a dominant character. She actually is basically our Rick within this episode. She's becoming more and more like Rick, and what makes you see that clear as day is the fact that she managed to find her way out of the machine, of the Matrix, and so did he. Of course, it's Rick, he's the mad scientist, he can of course do that, but the ways of them doing it was very interesting. Of course, she took a much longer process to it, and maybe a more ethical, but with a dark underlining version of it, where how did she access all the lithium, how did she create this environment to be able to get it all. You know, she manipulated and used Morty as a pawn to do that, which is obviously very negative, and it shows that darker side that Rick has, where he has a lot of lackluster care for those around him. However, at the end of the episode, it shows that contrast within her, because she goes over to Morty and apologizes, something that I don't think Rick's ever done, ever, in 8 seasons. Whereas you see Rick, obviously in the machine, very carelessly, like very firmly just break the Matrix, make it obsolete, by not fixing the world in any way, the fake world, by putting them into another Matrix, basically showing that he can't learn a lesson. He doesn't learn lessons, Rick. He don't learn lessons, whereas Summer did learn a lesson in this episode. However, it means diddly squat, because she wiped her mind, and then it's brilliant to show how finished and like how nothing that whole thing was, all of that character arc, all that journey she went on with Beth, with herself, what have you. It means nothing when she watches the video of herself and her attention span can't even last 2 minutes of the video, and she turns it off and says, "What are we huffing tonight?" Do you know what I mean? It shows it's quite it's what Rick and Morty does so perfectly. It can have such brilliant writing that develops characters in certain ways, but it doesn't mean anything in the end of it. You know, even Morty, the journey he went on in this episode, and then he gets the tattoo to remember the Charger Wars, and you know what that meant for him in that moment. He gets his mind wiped, and he hates the thing that's on him, and he feels icky and disgusting, because Morty is an overthinker and anxious person, an anxious kid, so of course he doesn't like it. I did enjoy this episode. It was a decent start to season 8. I think, again, the concept was great. The way we've delved into the characters straight off the bat was really cool, because obviously the last time we saw them was Fear No Mort in the season 7 finale, where, you know, Morty's gone through the absolute ringer. And we've seen him go again, absolutely through the ringer again, which he always is at the end of the day. A decent episode. I wouldn't say it was one of the best episodes I've ever watched. I actually, in this video, will tell you I rank this episode a 7 out of 10. It's just a nice, fun, interesting delve into the characters. It's a good way to start. It's interesting they chose to start in this way, with Summer being the main character. It maybe shows us where this season may go, with Summer being a bigger role. One thing I will say, one of the icky bits I had with it, I really don't know. I think I got used to rewatching the older seasons of Rick and Morty, The voice acting of Morty in this episode didn't sound right to me at all. I don't know if I'm on my own in thinking that, but something just didn't feel right listening to Morty in this episode. But, you know, it was still a decent episode nonetheless. And as I said, 7 out of 10. Thank you again for coming on through. Make sure you drop a sub. I've been Floppylegss, and I'll see ya when I see ya.